Cole claims fish distribution is now 98% efficient, helping rural.
That's Tech Life's Michael.
there a better way? Now, maybe his idea won't work out, but it's worth thinking of alternatives, and that's what the king is doing. He's saying we'll work with the Saudis, meeting with them. The Egyptians have a plan. Let's work with you. And that's the right way, rather than simply saying, hell no.
And how risky is it, though, for Donald Trump to be putting so much pressure on Jordan, a steady U.S. ally? Will Republicans in the U.S. be pressuring Trump to back down on his aid threats?
A little bit, but this is based upon a general belief, very broad in the West and Europe, in the United States, that I've generally felt to over decades, but I'm not sure is correct, which is that we have to earn the right to defend countries from existential threats. No, we don't. It's pleasant to do that. It makes us appear like nice guys and girls, but it's really not necessary. We are providing a huge asset to the entire world with our collective security system against threats like Iran, North Korea, China, and Russia. And Trump is very hard-boiled and transactional about this. He simply says, this is what I want. Look what you're getting from us. So what's your counter?
Ambassador James Jeffrey speaking to me from Washington, D.C. Stay with us. More to come on NewsHour.
BBC on Bobo. This is the BBC World Service. Across Cayman on Bobo FM. The following commercial messages are brought to you exclusively by Stingray Media.
When it comes to weekly meal prep, I trust Kirk Market to provide the best value for quality proteins. The butchers at Kirk Market are super helpful. They always slice my steaks perfectly. Kirk Market has everything I need for healthy and flavorful protein-packed meals. From lean cuts of CAB choice beef, tender CAB prime beef, the juiciest pork, and all-natural hormone-free poultry, to their seafood section with everything from fresh local snapper to omega-3 rich salmon. I choose Kirk Market for the highest quality proteins to support my healthy lifestyle. Kirk Market. Eat well, live well, and discover a world of choice.
We need to talk. Okay. We've noticed you've been going to KFC a lot more than usual lately. And
that's fine. We know you love it.
we just don't understand how you could afford it.
The KFC What a Deal menu starting at just $3. Gives you lots of great choices and value. Available at KFC Baytown Plaza, Shedden Road, and in the Strand. The KFC What a Deal value meals. The deal everyone should know about. Come to KFC and enjoy a variety of tasty choices at surprising prices. KFC, so good.
Shirts, pants, or linens. When you want them clean, just drop them off at Island Cleaners. Island Cleaners is a full-service dry cleaner, meaning you name it, they clean it. Professional shirt service, fluff and fold laundry, and more. Even drape and area rug cleaning and alterations, from quick hem jobs to resizing dresses. Island Cleaners, your one stop for everything clean. Artco Drive off Shedden Road. Ask about VIP and prepaid discounts.
Have your engine driving like never before with Pure 93, the highest pure octane fuel in Cayman, and available exclusively at Rubis service stations. Pure 93 protects against engine knock, restores lost power and acceleration, cleans fuel injectors, intake valves, removes engine deposits, improves your fuel economy, and it meets international specification requirements for your car. Fill up with Pure 93 now and keep your engine running like new. Fuel the difference with Pure 93, available exclusively at Rubis.
At Integra Healthcare, we're proud to offer the services of 2 expert dermatologists with extensive UK consultant experience. Our dermatologists specialize in skincare detection and management, general dermatology, pediatric dermatology, skin lesion evaluation, skin cancer identification, and a full range of clinical dermatology conditions. For appointments, you can visit integra.ky/dermatology or call 745-7450. Dermatology care as it should be.
At Polar Bear Air Conditioning, we believe in helping you to avoid costly mistakes and replacements. That's why we offer a quarterly maintenance program at a discounted price. You'll receive a 10% discount on all repairs, accessories, and services. Priority front-of-the-line customer status, reminders of your service, and no overtime rate for after-hours calls. Why not save money and avoid hassle with Polar Bear Air Conditioning? Need service now? Book our AC special for just $99. Book the next available technician at polarbear.ky. That's polarbear.ky.
Enter to win Ashley's monthly $1,000 giveaway with any purchase now through December 2024. A winner every month. Don't miss out on Ashley Cash. Visit Ashley Furniture Home Store on 360 Dorsey Drive. This is home.
The views and opinions expressed on Straight Talk with Austin and ELlio do not necessarily reflect or represent the views of Stingray Media, its staff, or contributors. Callers to the program accept full responsibility for the views expressed. The show host and affiliates are not liable for any statements made or any harm claimed. All callers to the program indemnify Straight Talk from all claims. Offensive, defamatory, or unlawful content will not be tolerated. Be a part of the conversation by calling 745-2626. Now, here's Straight Talk with Austin and ELlio on Bobo FM.
Hello, K-Man, and welcome once again. I'm your host, Austin Harris.
And I'm ELlio Solomon.
And together we welcome you to the second episode of Straight Talk with Austin and ELlio, brought to you by Bobo 89.1 FM. We are streaming live on YouTube as we speak. You just simply look for Straight Talk with Austin and ELlio, and you can log on to our streaming stream. And also a reminder, you can find us on Facebook at Straight Talk, as well as Instagram under the same name.
We need some likes there.
We need some likes, and specifically we need some followers on
tell us why,
media.
Austin. Tell us why we need
Tell
followers.
us why. Well, again, both Facebook and Instagram won't allow streaming until we have at least 100 people following. So we want to encourage everyone within the sound of our voice to add us as a friend, subscribe, and again, like us as a follower, and hopefully we'll get to 100. We'd like to see us get there before the end of the week, just to sort of test the strength.
It would be nice.
It would be nice. It would be nice. We promise we won't let it get to our head.
Yeah, and generally speaking, of course, everybody takes that sort of 21-day period in order to kind of get into new habits or break old ones.
Right.
So we want to encourage persons who are listening, share the information with a friend.
Yes.
Tell them that Austin ELlio's on.
That's right. We are streaming, however, compliments of our partners, Monster Media. However, if you want to pick us up on Instagram streaming video, you have to search for the Rec Room 345. That's Rec, R-E-C, Room, R-O-O-M 345. The Rec Room 345, and you'll be able to pick us up on your Instagram page using them as an alternate. But again, hopefully, when we reach 101 followers, we'll be able to stream live over at least 3 platforms is the plan. Also, good news today, we're told, and it worked during testing, and the moment of truth will really come today. We seem to have fixed our telephone line problems. That's right. We need some sound effects in here.
Yeah.
745-2626. You can be a part of the conversation by just picking up the phone and giving us a call at 745-2626. And again, I believe it when we hear it, not necessarily see it.
Proof is in the pudding.
Proof is in the doing. So let's see if what worked in practice and when we were off air still works whilst we're live on air. 745-2626 is the number. We still have our WhatsApp number, which is 928-2562. We haven't worked out how to receive telephone calls via the WhatsApp number, but we have figured out that we can, at the very least, receive voice notes. So if you want to share a voice note with us over WhatsApp in the place of our 1-800 number, which we don't have yet, but we will as time moves on. But certainly if you don't want to, again, use your credit or your data, then you can by all means send a quick voice note and be a part of the conversation that way. And it looks like we have our first caller on the line. So here comes the moment of truth. Hello, caller. You're on the air.
Hello, ELlio and Austin.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. It works.
It works. Hey, you know, I figured
he should win something. First caller
to be able to do a test on a phone line. So this is it.
This is it. Thank you so very much. It works fantastic. ELlio correctly stated that we really should have a prize to give away, but keep calling and maybe you'll definitely win something before the week is out.
Sure enough, congratulations, ELlio and Austin. Great to see the show and to be able to tune in like this.
Thank you so much.
So hold on, I'm not going to call names unless you want to call it, but I think I recognize that voice, and who would be more appropriate to be testing our phone lines than you?
One has to appreciate the irony.
I'll give you 3 guesses, ELlio.
I don't need 3 guesses. I don't need 3 guesses. But if you want me to say it, I can say it.
Go ahead and say it.
I think that sounds like Tim Adam to me.
Yes.
Yeah, but man, you just shot a hole in one.
All right. And of course, we have you to thank back in the day when we were on the air many moons ago, because you helped get us that what is it? What do you call it? The free line there?
1-800 number.
It's a toll-free 1-800 number.
Yes.
Yes, it was a pleasure to be able to sponsor things like that were, our purpose was to help Cayman communicate. That's why the company existed, and
yes,
it's all part of that mission, right? So there we go. All right, I'll leave you to it.
Thank you, Tim. Certainly do appreciate it, and again for testing that phone line for us. Again, for the uninitiated, particularly the younger listeners.
Hey, who's that guy?
Yeah, who's that guy? What are you talking about? Tim Adam used to be the managing director of a company that what you call Flow today was cable and wireless back in our day. And then, of course, they made that transition over to Flow.
They went from there to Lime.
Lime, that's right. I was in the middle.
We were liming, man.
We're liming, that's right. And
from
then it became
Flow.
Flow. But yeah, Tim Adam was the managing director of Flow. What is Flow today? What you recognize as a telephone company, Flow.
Yep.
And yes, he did a lot to help our previous outing on
I'll
the
embarrass him a little bit more by saying he's done a lot of other things. One of those things, he was also CEO of the Turtle Center for at least 12 years.
Yes.
So you can't just say, hey, he's a private sector guy. He did his public sector.
And he comes from a family of really, I consider them quality Caymanians. They're definitely, again, in the category of son of the soils, sons of the soil.
Yeah.
You've got Mike, his brother, who was an MP for a time, or a member of the Legislative Assembly, a politician, in other words.
He served with me.
He served with you, quite right. Then, of course, you have... Hobbies and Books guy.
Billy.
Mr. Billy Adam. Listen, I got a lot of time and respect for Billy. Billy used to own a bookstore. So, he had lots of time in his hands, and
Hobbies
he was
and
a
books.
fountain of knowledge on a variety of topics. All 3 of those fine gentlemen, though, are all community activists in one way or the other. They are not shy to, be a part of things that they think matter.
Doing their part.
Doing their part to see this country go forward in whatever subject matter that they believe in. They're not, they're not just followers. They get involved and they participate actively, and I just think that's a good thing.
No, absolutely. I want to thank him very much for calling into the program, helping us to test out the phone lines.
Yes.
Greatly appreciate it.
And now we know they're working, so that's fantastic. The phone lines are open. 745-2626 is the number. Again, if you want to, not call in the phone, but you want to stay semi-anonymous, and then by all means, you can send us a quick voice note on WhatsApp. That number is 928-2562. In terms of conversation today, really, I think we're just sort of plucking what we think are some important topics coming from the news. So you don't have to read the newspaper or go online and let your fingers do the walking. We'll read to you all of the important bits, and basically you can forget about everything else.
And not only read, we'll analyze it for you.
Of course. Well, of course.
Come on, you a full 360 on it.
Far be it from us to give you, half the product. We'll give you the full product offering. A number of good things. I think these are positive things, and we'll start off with the positive things. I'm sure as time moves on, there'll be a few, quote-unquote, controversial subjects that we would otherwise raise, and we won't shy away from them either.
Absolutely.
But certainly it is something that we would like to stick to some of the more positive, uplifting news. So let's kick it off. This one coming from last week's meeting of Parliament. The UPM, the minority government, accepted a private member's motion to regulate and limit the number of non-Caymanians who can be licensed as real estate agents. The private member's motion was brought by MP Bernie Bush and supported by MP Chris Saunders. Coming from the pages of CNS, it says, putting his case for the motion to his colleagues, Bush said there were some significant concerns about the sector and allegations of inappropriate practices were common. He said it was time for Caymanians to benefit from the sector given the huge amount of property that has been sold in recent years to overseas owners. Bush went on to say that the only Caymanians that he knew who were working in the sector have struggled because it is a closed network, his words, where they only let in certain people. Now, Premier, the Honorable Juliana O'Connor-Connolly, accepted the motion on behalf of the government, saying that the government was inclined to agree with the talking points and the debate remarks raised by both the mover of the motion, MP Bush, and the seconder, Chris Saunders. She said she pointed out, though, that the sector is regulated under the Department of Commerce and Investment, and the sector largely under the banner of CEREBA, which I think stands for Cayman Islands Real Estate Brokers Association, and they are regulated under the Department of Commerce as it relates to money laundering issues, because obviously, property, real estate is oftentimes used as one of the tools in the money launderer's toolbox. So it's regulated under, I think, some of the financial services laws, but it is not regulated under consumer protection. So I think that's the first thing. If the purpose of the motion was to reduce both the number of foreign players and increase the number of opportunities for Caymanians, but also hopefully and somehow down the road also lead to reduced cost of real estate, because the pricing on real estate is well, it doesn't really have a rhyme or reason. The value of real estate is based on what the last guy paid for it. So if I bought property next to yours and I paid $1 million, then your property automatically is worth at least $1 million.
Yeah, they
if
do
you
it.
were to sell it.
They do it, I think, based on a couple of sales within that particular area.
Yes, exactly.
And get some numbers from that.
But again, if the goal here is to either give Caymanians greater opportunities, that's done largely will be done through the immigration law, because the immigration law will then take over when it comes down to permits and those who are otherwise get the job. That hasn't been defined. But if the goal is to obviously regulate pricing, because it's not governed or regulated under consumer protection, there may be a wide delta between the goal of the motion and what the end result may be.
Did you have the exact wording on the motion?
No, I don't have a copy of the motion. Certainly, I will go down to Parliament and get a copy of the bill, or the motion itself, and see if we can read it thoroughly.
So in terms of what you have, this is probably from the papers, what's it actually saying there insofar as wording?
It doesn't.
Just getting Caymanians into the industry?
Getting Caymanians into the industry, giving them greater opportunity. I know that the industry, again, in casual conversation and criticism, if you will, constructive or otherwise, they've viewed the real estate industry as been called a cartel. In other words, only certain members are allowed to enter that industry. I know MP Bush made the argument in his debate that there's only a few handful of Caymanians that are in the industry, those that are allowed to perhaps, share in the lion's share of some of the more expensive properties.
Right.
There is, I call it the rule of capitalism, really. There is the notion that is generally accepted that the major properties are already locked down by the major real estate firms. So unless you're a Remax or a Sotheby's or whatever the case may be, you may not have a listing for some of the $1 million properties. And I don't know enough about the industry to say whether or not that is something that the real estate industry gets to decide in, or very likely, I would think, if I'm the customer and I've got a $30 million property and I want to get it sold, it's up to me whether I want to list it with Remax or I want to list it with Sotheby's. Yeah. So it starts with the seller, in my mind, but maybe the association has a larger role to play. And this is certainly, I think, also what the Premier was stating in her response. She stated, and I quote directly from CNS, "Concerns persist regarding the transparency, the fairness, the affordability within the industry, noting that licensing is voluntary through CEREBA, which regulates entry into the profession." Basically, CEREBA regulates itself. And, well, we know how that tends to work. It tends to work for self, but not necessarily always in the wider public interest. However, she went on to say there are no specific mandated regulations, competency requirements, or ethical standards. She would like to see regulation focus on things such as setting qualification requirements, the code of conduct within the industry, ethical standards, a complaints procedure, professional development, accountability, and liability insurance to help build, as she says, quote unquote, build a stronger, more ethical real estate market. So,
well, the thing is that I guess first of all, when I hear things like this, I wonder why we haven't had the implementation of the thing that was passed in law by myself in 2013, or our government. I think it was March 2013. They dubbed it in the Compass Jobs for Caymanians Only.
Yes, yes.
And again, it allows cabinet to pretty much get a blank sheet of paper and say, hey, we want receptionists to be a job for Caymanians Only, or whatever that you earmark. And you get a lot of complaints. I mean, even when there was on Sandra's show a few days ago, you had one of our Caymanians calling and saying, yeah, well, all jobs should be for Caymanians. There's been a lot of different arguments, but why that has not been implemented in at least some fashion is beyond me.
Mm-hmm.
And when I hear things like this about even the real estate agency, I mean, isn't this what we also had with the key employee and what was it called?
It was key employee.
What was called that? The Business Staffing Planning Board.
Yes.
The Business Staffing Planning Board. There's a board. The thing is, it's like you already have, to a large extent, the instruments that somebody could sit and say, by the way, you have a real estate company here. Show me where you're training some Caymanians. If you want another permit, where is that?
Yes.
This is what we were told and promised was going to happen with things like the business staffing plan.
Correct.
So why are we even have? And again, not to knock the mover of the motion or the seconder. Kudos for them. But why is all that not happening? How is it that you're going to say we have an industry that's completely foreign nationals, which of course a lot of them get status, so I guess they're Caymanians now.
Yeah.
But no one is holding them to account via the business staffing plan that says, listen, you have a real estate company here and you don't have one single Caymanian. Yes. I need to see 3 or 4 Caymanians identified. Get some persons, mentor them, train them. All of this to me is within our power. And this is what really bothers me. Just like how we have a law, jobs for Caymanians only, that has never been implemented. Mm-hmm. And bear in mind, this is from 2013. What does that make it now? That's 11 years? Mm-hmm. 11 years. Not one single member of government has said, it's already on the books. Mm-hmm. We need jobs for Caymanians only. Let us earmark this one, that one, or the other one.
Sure. Well, I think certainly to your point, why hasn't these motions, which are, again, part of the legislative and legal framework.
And I'll just stress, what I'm talking about wasn't a motion. I want to just tie it up because a lot of people think it was just a motion.
That's right.
This was actually put into the law.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, it started as a bill and then it became a law. So it was moved by the government, which ELlio was a member of at the time. I was just going to say that I suspect that the reason why we haven't seen it implemented at any sort of considerable level is that successive governments since you have all been pro-business. And when we say pro-business, it's usually whatever we can do to make business comfortable. And whilst I can absolutely understand that from one aspect, because obviously it's businesses that employ persons and pay salaries that allow persons to have their being. The opposite of that would be, well, government employs everybody. And there have been countless arguments about the size of government. Government can't be the sole employer. I know a lot of people want a government job because it's a good job to have. And certainly, as we found out during COVID, it is recession-proof having a government job. Yeah. But not everybody can work for government. And also, more importantly, when we think of the size of government, the costs related to government, government is not a private company. It's not a private corporation. Government is the people. Yeah. And the revenue and resources it has are taxpayer dollars.
Right. So our money.
Exactly. So it has to be treated differently. But unfortunately, more times than not, it is viewed as just another company. Well, government can pay for it. Government can hire you. Government can do that. But don't raise my taxes. Well, you can't have it both ways. Mm-hmm. If government's expenses are going to go up, and they have, just we talked yesterday, no revenue streams coming in to pay for it, and we're only going to touch on it for the purposes of this argument right here and not carry us down another detour. But again, the revenue detours coming from cruise tourism. Can you honestly say that we can afford as a country to jettison that income because simply one demographic thinks it's a bad idea? Well, it may be a bad idea, again, maybe environmentally, whatever the case may be, but that revenue is spoken for. That revenue goes towards more than tourism.
Well,
it goes to roads and schools and hospitals and the like.
I promise not to talk much about tourism today, cruise tourism.
I do blame myself. I did just open the door.
But I'll tell you this.
I did just open the door.
Maybe it's under attack like other things because there's so many Caymanians involved. Because I keep feeling, Austin, that if you can get some foreign nationals in an industry, and I guarantee you wouldn't have a problem. It gets all the government protection that you want and that you need. And it's just beyond me. You continue to see campaign after campaign. You're going to hear all these statements, what one that's being thrown around now. Enough is enough. And listen.
That one cracks me up.
Yeah, no,
that one really does.
Listen, we have had this problem, and you've had a solution since 2013 that you can go ahead and say, listen, this job is going to be earmarked for Caymanians only, and it has not been done. And I think these are the sort of things that people need to bear squarely in their minds.
Yes.
When they're going out to go and vote.
Yes.
Because why have you not implemented that? And I'm pro-business. I am completely pro-business. Pro-business is business should be creating jobs, and it should be creating jobs not just for foreign nationals, it should also be creating jobs for Caymanians.
100% agree with that.
And this is the problem. And I said this many times on the radio before. It is a natural thing, not that it is right. But if you find a guy out there, for example, that worked in a company and they use Dell computers, it is natural that when he moves to the other company, chances are you'll see Dell starting to be purchased because he's used to it, he's familiar with it. Yeah. I don't think you see much difference in terms of different nationalities. That nationality comes here and they've got a friend back home. They've got a cousin, and they're trying to get that person a job. The only group that isn't looking out for each other, it seems, is Caymanians.
Absolutely.
And bottom line is, I am pro-business, but you have to be able to provide jobs, security, etc., for the most important demographic in this country, which should be Caymanians.
Yes.
When we are seeing Caymanians having to go to England and other places in the world to try to survive, that's a very, very sad state of affairs.
Yes. No,
and like I said,
I'd agree with you.
I'll simply end by saying that there's absolutely no reason it should be happening because, amongst other things, there's on the books things like jobs for Caymanians only that can be implemented. We were promised many years ago by the Business Staff and Planning Board that these would be instruments that would hold businesses accountable to ensure Caymanians would get promotions and so on and so on.
I'm glad you brought them up because when you talk about pet peeves, first of all, I think both ELlio and I have always agreed, and this is a matter of public record, that what is needed is simply that we enforce the laws that we have. And the immigration law has remained largely unchanged since the 70s when it was first, when it first was made law. There have been a few amendments here and there. Arguably, some will argue not so much to benefit the Caymanian, but perhaps the foreign worker. But again, that's a matter of opinion. But what also gets me is that, Caymanians are supposed to get the first peck at the apple. And if there are available Caymanians, then permits shouldn't be granted. But in just those two key areas, we see that sidestep day in, day out. The immigration law also requires employers to train new employees, whether they're Caymanian or foreign national. Now, somewhere along the lines a few years ago, it became acceptable where employers were allowed to post job vacancies, but expecting certain work experience so that that new employee, Caymanian or foreigner, would hit the ground running day one, and now employers don't have to train. And I keep asking, where does it say that in the law? But I also believe that in and of itself has been an impediment, not only for Caymanians entering the workforce, but seeing Caymanians advance from, entry level to manager, supervisor, manager, whatever the case may be, because that training hasn't been part of the employment requirements. And I just simply say, the law says it. It's still there in black and white, but we've allowed ourselves, whether with the help of previous and successive governments or otherwise, to sidestep and ignore it. And therefore, we should not be surprised when we now fast forward to 2024, now 2025, and we see an existing white paper, discussion paper, on amending the immigration law from the immigration law to the Caymanian Protection Act. Immigration reform is the order of the day, and this is a result of it. But I think it's important to state that nobody woke up one morning from being happy with the current landscape of the labor market and say, you know what we need? We need to push for Caymanian interests. We've been pushing, arguably, for Caymanian interests, but we've been ignoring either what the law says, what new amendments that have been purposeful to benefit Caymanians, in favor of something else. So why should we be surprised with the now end result?
If we look at the Cayman Islands, and you and I have oftentimes used this analogy, you got Cayman Island Inc., Cayman Islands the company. If you have a company right now and you have to outsource something, it is because you do not have the expertise in-house.
Right.
You know, you don't have a plumber and then you go outsource it, but you got a plumber. So in this particular case, one could simplify it by saying, I have to go out and get a foreign national because he or she has the training, the experience, and the qualifications in order to do this job, and I don't have it in-house. So even if we take that on board, I think there should be very limited to zero need to have to train a foreign national when they come here, because they should have been brought in only because they have the knowledge and the expertise and the experience.
Right.
And if you are doing it, you want to run your company well, then you should bring these persons in. They should be working, but they should also be training a Caymanian so that your company will finally have some of those resources on the inside that you don't have to outsource again. And I just think it's kind of a hogwash. Every election year you hear the same thing, but best of luck.
Well, there you go. The first topic of the day, 745-2626. Do you agree with the private member's motion to regulate the real estate industry? Or do you want to be a part of the wider conversation on the need for immigration reform? Or do you simply agree, as we do, that we should just simply enforce the law as it is written as a starter and see how far we get? 745-2626 are the phone lines. You can give us a call. We'd love to hear from you. You can also find us on Facebook at Straight Talk, both Facebook and Instagram. But we do need to pause, take a short commercial break, check in with the BBC News. But there'll be more Straight Talk still to come here on Bobo F.
How can we understand the world better?
The BBC World Service is a window onto the wider world.
A vantage point from which to survey a new horizon.
News, reports, and analysis from around the world.
Stories we think matter.
Different people from different societies.
We get to the heart of global issues.
News, stories, and global perspectives from the BBC World Service.
The home of the BBC World Service. This is Bobo FM.
The BBC World Service, the world's radio station.
The BBC World Service makes programs with a uniquely global perspective.
Enlighten us. Where do we start?
The latest world news and current affairs.
The very best in global arts and culture.
What has been happening on the financial markets today.
Social issues, political stories.
Everything was there in a way that I never heard before.
The BBC World Service.
The home of the BBC World Service. This is Bobo FM.
The BBC's From Our Own Correspondent.
In today's Russia, no one is allowed anywhere near the political stage if they pose a serious challenge to Vladimir Putin.
Stories and reflections from our reporters around the world.
There is a major sense of insecurity here.
More people are coming in from Sudan every day.
From Our Own Correspondent from the BBC.
The home of the BBC World Service. This is Bobo FM. This is Bobo FM, powered by Doctors Hospital. 24/7 urgent care, located in Georgetown at the top of Walker's Road. Introducing the Doctors Hospital Specialty Clinic, conveniently located in the Strand. To book your appointment at Doctors Hospital, call 325-9000. Across Cayman on 89.1 FM, online and on your smart speaker. The home of the BBC World Service. This is Bobo FM.
This is Danielle Yawowiecka with the BBC News. Hello. The Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has warned Hamas that unless it goes ahead with the release of Israeli hostages on Saturday, the ceasefire in Gaza will be terminated. He didn't say how many must be freed. Mr. Netanyahu's announcement comes after Hamas said on Monday it was delaying the next scheduled release because Israel was not in compliance with the ceasefire, a claim rejected by Israel. Protesters gathered in Tel Aviv after the announcement accused Mr. Netanyahu of abandoning the hostages.
People are dying slowly but surely, and we have to save them while we can. Unfortunately, we are only pieces in the games of Bibi and our government. I have to say we are not our government. We do not support what our government is doing, and we want our people back home with their families.
Jordan's King Abdullah has reiterated in a meeting with President Trump at the White House that he opposes the displacement of Palestinians from Gaza. He said it was the unified Arab position. The president, who again said he was still fully committed to the plan, backed down on his earlier threat to withhold billions of dollars in aid for Jordan and Egypt if they refused to take in Palestinians.
I don't want to say that because we've had such a good relationship and we're doing so well just in the short time that we've been talking. No, I think we'll do something. I don't have to threaten with money. We contribute a lot of money to Jordan and to Egypt, by the way, a lot, to both. But I don't have to threaten that. I think we're above that.
King Abdullah insisted that a two-state solution is the best way forward to ensure a just peace in the region. The White House has announced that an American man who's been held in Russia since 2021 on drug charges has now been freed. The US National Security Advisor Mike Waltz said the 63-year-old schoolteacher Mark Fogel was on his way home after an exchange was negotiated with Russia. Mr. Waltz said the deal served as a show of good faith from Moscow and a sign that the two nations were moving in the right direction towards ending the war in Ukraine. Mark Fogel's sister, Anne, spoke to the BBC.
He's flying into D.C. today, and then he'll go directly, I think he'll say hello to his wife and his children, and then I think he'll fly on to probably San Antonio, Texas, for medical evaluation and psychological evaluation.
The US Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent is to visit Kyiv this week, with some sources suggesting he'll offer continued American support for Ukraine in return for access to the country's rare earth minerals. The possibility of such a deal has been raised by Donald Trump. It was initially suggested in the peace plan President Zelensky put forward last year. You're listening to the latest world news from the BBC. More than 100 people have been evacuated from a 54-storey residential building that's ablaze in the Argentine capital, Buenos Aires. Pictures show the fire spreading through several floors of the tower in the exclusive neighbourhood of Puerto Madero. There are no reports of casualties. European Union monitors say there was no evidence of fraud in the first round of Ecuador's presidential election. President Daniel Noboa has blamed alleged irregularities for his failure to secure an outright victory.
There have been many irregularities, and we kept checking and counting in certain provinces where things did not add up, not even with a quick count conducted by the Organization of American States, which gave us a higher figure.
Mr. Noboa won the vote by a tiny margin and will have to face the left-wing candidate Luisa Gonzalez in a runoff in April. A new Chinese rocket with the capacity to carry larger batches of satellites into Earth's orbit has set off on its maiden flight. The Long March A8 rocket is carrying a set of low Earth orbit satellites. Beijing has poured billions of dollars into its space program over the past decade. The author Salman Rushdie has been testifying at a trial in New York State of the man accused of attempting to kill him in a stabbing attack in 2022. He said he'd initially thought he'd been punched by Hadi Matar, who's been charged with attempted murder, but soon saw he was bleeding profusely. The World Health Organization has launched a new initiative to distribute free cancer medicines to thousands of children in low and middle-income countries. In the pilot phase, 6 countries will receive uninterrupted shipments of childhood cancer medicines. The first deliveries are being distributed in Mongolia and Uzbekistan, with later shipments planned for Ecuador, Jordan, Nepal and Zambia. The treatments are expected to reach 5,000 children with cancer in these 6 nations this year. BBC News.
The views and opinions expressed on Straight Talk with Austin and ELlio do not necessarily reflect or represent the views of Stingray Media, its staff, or contributors. Callers to the program accept full responsibility for the views expressed. The show host and affiliates are not liable for any statements made or any harm claimed. All callers to the program indemnify Straight Talk from all claims. Offensive, defamatory, or unlawful content will not be tolerated. Be a part of the conversation by calling 745-2626. Now, here's Straight Talk with Austin and ELlio on Bobo FM.
And welcome back, K-Man, to Straight Talk with myself, Austin Harris, and my colleague, ELlio Solomon.
ELlio Solomon, there you go.
There we go. Sorry. I know I should have waited for you to do your part.
That's fine.
But it won't happen again. I apologize. We are coming to you live from the Bobo FM studios on 89.1 FM. We are streaming live on YouTube with, all you got to do is just find us. Just search for Straight Talk with Austin and ELlio on YouTube. We are also on Facebook and Instagram under the title Straight Talk, but we are not streaming on those platforms as of yet because we need at least 100 followers before the platform will allow streaming. So it'll come down to you, the listening audience. Hopefully help us get to our first milestone. Our first milestone goal will be 100 followers on both Facebook and Instagram, and then we will be streaming on those platforms as well. We are presenting, thanks to Monster Media, a streaming platform via Instagram, albeit we're piggybacking on a colleague. The search won't be Straight Talk. You'll be searching for something called The Rec Room 345. That's REC Room, Rec Room 345. And our streaming feed will be brought to you. As a matter of fact, is being brought to you now by The Rec Room 345. So if you're on Instagram and want to catch us on your handheld device, you can certainly do so that way. Again, the phone lines are open, 745-2626. We have a WhatsApp number, 928-2562. You can't call us on WhatsApp, but you can send us a voice note if you want to be a part of the conversation that way. But we were just talking, of course, about the first item on the agenda, the private member's motion moved by MP Bernie Bush and seconded by MP Chris Saunders, seeking broader regulation of the real estate industry with the goal of, in the first instance, increasing the opportunities for Caymanian involvement. And I also believe, on the other hand, lending itself to perhaps bringing some of these arbitrary real estate pricing down, because there's no rhyme or reason as to how.
What's that thought? Is that if you have Caymanian real estate agents, you're not going to get the high prices?
Well, I don't think it's so much Caymanian real estate agents, but if we're going to regulate the real estate industry, we're looking at more than just employment. And one of the quick areas that comes to my mind in terms of how do we bring the cost of real estate down, maybe looking at the commission rate that we pay real estate agents for selling properties. Right now, I think the commission rate is anywhere from 5 to 6%. The rest of the world is a fixed rate of between 1 and maybe 2%. But you can clearly see that if we reduce the expenses, me as the seller is paying the real estate company to sell my company, there should be a knock-on effect that the prices over time go down.
But don't we know already what? See that good Caymanian talk already.
Already.
We know already what the problem is, because if you have a lot of investors coming into your country, I mean, you go whether it's UK or Cayman Islands or around the world.
Yeah.
Even if I want to just simplify it, okay, Austin Harris is a nice, hard-working Caymanian guy. He's in his 40s. I'm making you a little younger than
Thank you, I appreciate it.
But you look 40.
You look 40. Yeah, I got a face made for radio.
Yeah, so here is Austin, young working guy, and then here comes that ELlio guy. He's coming from overseas, and I've been working all my life. I'm kind of an old fogey, but clearly I've been working longer than you, and I've got money to retire.
Yes.
And there was a piece of land in Cayman. I know this might sound very strange to people, but I remember when you could buy a piece of land for like $12,000, went to $25,000, and people actually gave you terms for payment too. It's amazing. But all right, anyway, you get a foreign national that comes into your country, and they want a piece of the rock.
Yeah.
And they say, what, $12,000? And they go, I'm willing to pay $30,000 for that. And back to your argument now, the next piece of land goes to be sold, and then the guy says, well, they sold that piece over there for $30,000. I guess it's going for $30,000. So all of a sudden now you've got land going now from $12,000 or $20,000 and goes to $30,000. This is one of the fundamental ways that I'm aware of their prices are going up.
Yeah.
I'm not necessarily sure that getting Caymanians in the industry, which I should be in the industry, is definitely going to make much difference insofar as the prices are concerned. I don't think that's going to happen.
Yeah.
But bottom line is, again, like I want to say, and I said earlier, I really don't see, and this is not to knock the mover or the seconder of the motion. I appreciate any effort that can be made to ensure that Caymanians can have an opportunity to thrive, not just survive, but to thrive in their country. And I think anyone worth their salt who's in office should be working to say, what am I doing to make sure that Caymanians are getting an opportunity to get training, education, and definitely employment. And this is what, again, I just find amazing that you don't have anyone that gets up and says, we have these laws in the book, here's jobs for Caymanians only, let's implement it. And then at the same time, instruments like the Business Staff and Planning Board light a fire up under them. Because the other thing I remember was all the key issue of key employee. Mm-hmm. And there's poor Austin Harris working up in some bank, and they want to justify bringing in some other big shot, and they actually have Austin Harris earmarked as the next manager. Mm-hmm. There's only one problem with this, Austin.
He's Caymanian.
No, Austin's not aware that
Yes, quite right. Nobody's told Austin this.
Nobody has told Austin that he's down as the next manager. There, Austin's going about, he's stressed at night because he doesn't know that slated for him is this big $190,000 position as managing director.
Right.
And therefore, nobody has to provide you training, and nobody's following up to say, where is this training for Austin Harris so he can get this $190,000 job?
Yeah.
So there's just so many things. And I think when you look at it, I think a lot of things would be resolved if we get a little bit of enforcement.
Sure.
Which carries me on to one of my pet peeves, by the way. Mm-hmm. I'm glad I brought this up.
I'm glad you did, too.
Yeah.
Catch your breath, though.
No, it's something moving, tickling in my throat.
Have a sip of water.
But I don't know. That could carry us in a complete
Yeah, let's not go down that road.
So let's go down that road. Okay, so bottom line is, right, Austin, one of my pet peeves in this country. Notice the change in my voice.
I hear it. You've gone down and everything else, gotten more sober.
And I'm very serious about this. Is this litter problem?
Oh, okay? Absolutely.
Is the litter problem, which, by the way, reminds me that I got to reach out to my friend Ada Thompson, try to get him on this program. I saw him post something some weeks ago. But honestly, let me digress a little bit. This litter problem, I remember growing up and hearing that cleanliness is next to godliness.
Right.
There is almost no place that you can go now and park your car, relax, without there being 1,345 cans, bottles, condoms, everything known to man is on the beach and everywhere that you park. Mm-hmm. Like you say, I love eating in my car. Like it's like a mobile restaurant, right? You get all kinds of views.
Sure.
Who wants to be stuck with one view?
That's right.
And you can't really enjoy yourself because of the amount of trash. And I will tell you right now, I was in my neighborhood, and a gentleman people throwing trash. Mm-hmm. I made a complaint to the employer, and nothing was done about it. And at one instance, I saw the individual throw a piece of trash, and I said, listen, you're throwing trash in my neighborhood.
Yeah.
Go and pick it up.
Yeah. Good for you. Well done.
Yeah, he don't pick it up. So I called the police. The police comes out. Of course, I had to wait 45 minutes. Apparently, they were on shift. I waited 45 minutes. They came when I was finally in the shower, and then they're knocking down my door like they own the place. Mm-hmm. But anyway, what can I say?
Yeah.
So when they come now, I say, listen, we need to deal with this man. And apparently, I couldn't be involved in listening to the conversation. Somehow, that wasn't allowed. I don't know why. But
you weren't allowed to hear them speak to the third party?
Right.
Okay.
So here's a problem.
Yeah, you filed a complaint.
And this is why I came on to this, because I talked about the issue of enforcement. I'm very serious about this.
Sure.
So here is the individuals who admit to the Royal Cayman Islands Police that I threw the trash.
Mm-hmm.
And as far as I know, I don't know if he picked it up. I doubt he picked it up because it was way down in the bush, and I doubt they sent him way down in the bush in the middle of the night to pick it up.
Right.
So he didn't pick it up. Nobody, and isn't there a community law somewhere, $500 for littering?
We keep hearing that fine, but I don't know if anybody's ever been charged with it.
To my point about enforcement. Now, this individual here, I don't think he can afford quite a lot. I don't expect he'll pay $500, but couldn't you have dragged him downtown, inconvenienced him by booking him up on something, writing him, giving a proper warning, and at least charging him $25 or $100?
Yes.
There's zero enforcement.
Yeah.
And there's zero enforcement in terms of the trash. There's zero enforcement, again, when it comes to things related to Cayman.
Yes.
But I can tell you right now, there are a lot of people that have come here, and I'm sure that we have our own local trash too, but a lot of people that have come here, spelling it out, that are throwing trash, and I'm really getting enough of it. Something really has to be done about it.
Yeah.
Cayman was a place that I remember landing, and you looked like you could eat off the ground.
Mm-hmm.
And if we don't put a stop to this country is going to get, just like everywhere else where a lot of these same people are coming from, it's going to look like pure trash.
Yes.
I even saw some workers driving by the office bar one night. Here's another shameless plug. In the middle of town and throws out a plate of food.
Just nonchalantly.
Just throw it
right out the window.
Right.
Yeah.
Where's the police where you need one? So anyway, I just had to get that off my chest, and I'm bring it up a million times between now and
that's fine.
in the next 4 years.
But you're right, though. again, there is a law that is on the books, but nobody is enforcing it. Whether we're talking about the employment law or whether we're talking about the littering law.
And I would like someone to call and tell me, am I the only one, or is people throwing trash and nobody's, have you heard of anyone being charged?
I've never heard of anyone being charged ever in the history of the law. But 745-2626 is the number. We would love to hear from you, whether it be on the trash subject, whether it be on the private member's motion to regulate the real estate industry and your thoughts associated with that. Just because you digress, now I'm going to digress. We talk about...
I love digression.
Offering... another big problem in this country is speeding. Yeah. We have lost far too many young lives on our roadways because of speed and or the inclusion of alcohol. We have 300, 400 police officers in this country. I know we have a whole bunch of new cars. But I haven't seen, and again, I'm 40 years old according to my good friend ELlio, so I'll take it. I'll take it and run. But I haven't seen a police officer, quote unquote, hiding in the bushes, catching speeders, like I once did with, God rest his soul today, Manny Miles. Mm-hmm. Manny Miles, again, our mutual friend, recently, lost his life, left us.
Yeah.
But he
much too early.
Much too early. But again, growing up, and yes, I'm as guilty of this sin of speeding as anybody else. So I'm not pointing fingers at anyone. But I feared, and I'm always careful when I do it, and it's Manny that I think of. Manny going to jump out of them bushes and boom, I can see blue lights behind me, and there it is. But we talk about bringing speed bumps on major roadways. We talk about putting in what they call rumble strips, again, which are designed for more so the mediums or the side of the road. If you fall asleep, then you rumble, you wake up, and so on and so forth. But they're now being used as a speed deterrent or a traffic calming device, I think they use it for. But I've always maintained, we even put up speed signs, that are solar powered, which I think the young people are using that as a target. Oh, look, there's a speed sign. Let's see how fast I can get it today, because we won't have got this straight road.
Clock
you know what I mean? Clock me, exactly. Mm-hmm. But just imagine the kind of proactive effect it would be if the police and the patrol traffic car got away from the bushes and hiding behind the billboard signs and just sat on the side of the road, either northbound or southbound, with their tips on, which you can see from at least 2 miles down the road. Yeah. You're automatically going to slow down. You're automatically going to make sure that seatbelt is securely fastened. You're automatically going to turn down the volume of your stereo if you're passing through a residential community. Mm-hmm. And that, to me, is proactive policing. Yeah. That, to me, says, if Shamrock Road or Spot Street is where we've lost more young souls than we care to talk about today, and it's happening between certain hours, the twilight hours after the clubs close, then what does it cost you to station a parked police car on the side of the road with your tips on to proactively encourage people not to speed?
Well, I got two things to say. I mean, one, I remember when we used to talk about that years ago. So I will give the police some kudos, because it's good to see, at least now they drive up and down and you can see the blue light. And I think that in itself becomes a big deterrent to crime and misdemeanors or whatever.
Yeah.
But, hearing you say that, I had this smile on my face, Austin. There was a smile on my face. There was a smile on my face because I'm remembering, like you said, man, I remember being parked as a government employee in the government parking lot. Man is knocking on my window. Your belt.
Yes.
Right? Apparently my seatbelt wasn't working right. Mm-hmm. And man pretty much wanted to arrest me. Because I was saying, could I get away with the excuse that I'm not driving?
Mm-hmm. Right. I'm parked.
Yeah. But I don't think I was cutting it. But I was remembering in my day, because I used to speed as well. And again, it's something that young people do. I thank God for saving my life, because there's many close calls. But I remember,
you say, by the grace of God, there go I.
Absolutely. But I remember the police officer, I think in this case it was Philip Ebanks.
Mm-hmm.
He went to my mom.
I ran into him the other day in the supermarket.
Yeah.
He's a lawyer today.
Yeah, he's a lawyer now. Big shot lawyer. Yeah. So now I remember him back in the day going to speak to my parents and telling them, I've seen him. He needs to slow down. I said, that was real policing. That was where the day is, right?
Sure. Sure.
And then somehow it got back to the guy who...
proactive policing.
It got back to the guy who I had bought the Honda Prelude from, and he was a mechanic. And then he calls me and say, I need to do something in the car. Goes under the hood and does something, and all of a sudden I couldn't speed anymore.
Right.
I said, these people are interfering in my
governor
business.
to your speed limit.
So
you only go so fast.
Those were the days. But definitely to the point, I think that there's a lot of things on the books. I think we really just need somebody to come into government and say, we can scrap some of the laws that aren't working, that makes no sense, and for God's sakes, let's see if we can enforce this. But I just want to appeal to everyone. We really need to do something about the litter. I think that's one of, it sounds very simple, but I remember the story with Rudy Giuliani, I think it was, as a mayor in New York.
Broken window theory.
The broken window effect, right?
Yes, yes.
And again, the crime was high, but it was very much proven that by starting to clean up the buses, fix that broken window, pick up the trash, how crime started to reduce.
Yes.
Because the argument there goes that if you break a window and nobody fixes it, well, then the other guy will say, well, that's been like that for years, and I guess I can break this one too.
Yeah, you walk by it every day, you see it every day, and therefore you become desensitized to it. So that when you see a second broken window, a third broken window,
doesn't matter.
There's no effect anymore.
Yeah. But honestly, the derelict vehicles and even buildings, and I remember when we were in office, as far as I know, there was a dereliction law. There was a law and a provision specifically even for buildings. That area out there, and I'll call it shamelessly, that building out there, where is it, where Bananas is?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yes.
Listen, man, come on. What is this?
Yeah.
Am I like in some kind of a third world country? I mean, where am I?
Yes.
Is this the Cayman Islands?
We're planning there.
You know, yeah, if I put a sign up right now with mine in your face and it, Austin Harris and ELlio join us for Straight Talk, we'll be reading out the planning law. You shouldn't be having a sign up. Come on now. I'm sure that there's a provision somewhere that says you can't be having a building that looks as unsightly as that. I'm sure that somewhere in Cayman there has to be people that are concerned that we shouldn't be throwing trash the way that we do. And I just calling on the Royal Cayman Islands Police to please arrest somebody. Charge someone.
Somebody, anybody.
Yeah, just find someone that's throwing trash, even if it's me, and find me.
Well, I would just, I'm going to say this, I'm going to share this only because we just called his name. We were just referring to our good friend Philip Ebanks, who, before he became a high-flying attorney, he used to be a police officer. And again, we see many persons who were police officers obviously going on and expanding their legal career and, you know, continuing to do good work. You know, and again, we know him personally. He's a friend. So we mentioned his name. But somebody sent me via WhatsApp just moments ago, H. Philip Ebanks, practicing lawyer for over 25 years, has now come out as a new candidate for the constituency of Red Bay.
Oh, you're serious?
He is going to be contesting a seat in the upcoming general elections. That's two for today. That's the second person for Red Bay today, because I think I read somewhere that the Cayman Islands National Party also announced their candidate.
Who's that?
That's Dawn somebody. I'll tell you in a minute. I'll tell you in a minute. Dawn Thomas is her name. Young Caymanian lady. You'll see the picture and you'll recognize her right away.
So back on Philip for a moment.
Yes, back on Philip.
Back on Philip for a moment. There's quite a resume he's building up here. I mean, as far as I know, he went on to be very high-ranking in the police. What was that, inspector?
At least he was definitely in the blue command or whatever.
That green suit on. I think that was inspector.
Yeah, could be.
And then, obviously, like you said, went on to be a lawyer. Proud of him.
Yeah.
And now, again, another touch to the resume. Yeah. Talking about running for Red Bay. Congratulations to him.
Yeah.
I am aware that he's running for Red Bay. And we've got Leon Gold running for Red Bay.
Yeah.
I say West Bay. Red Bay. And then, of course, Roy Tatum. Because Mr. McLaughlin's stepping down.
Yes.
And then you said, who's the other person? Dawn
Thomas just announced, I guess just looking at the pages, again, this on CNS. Cayman Islands National Party slate increases to 12 as Red Bay candidate unveiled. Dawn Thomas, corporate executive and entrepreneur, has been added to the team contending the Red Bay seat. So the race in Red Bay just got a little hotter.
So it's like 4 of them in there.
Yeah, it sounds like 4 there indeed. Again, the Speaker of the House, Sir Alden McLaughlin, calling it quits recently on Friday, giving an impassioned farewell speech. And he made some comments that I hope we can talk about a little bit here today.
Sure.
Whether you agree with it or otherwise. But Sir Alden is not running for public office, removing himself from politics. I don't know whether that means he'll no longer be speaker either, but certainly that'll be the choice of the incoming government if they want to, keep him or not.
Right.
And if he is in fact retiring from politics, he's certainly proven the experience enough to manage the affairs of Parliament. So
definitely.
If he wants to keep it, then I don't have a problem with it personally. I think, as a matter of fact, if you get a new government of quote unquote,
he looks pretty good in the chair too.
I think he looks great in the chair. And what I like about
he
Sir
just
Alden,
gave the gangster shades.
But what I like about Sir Alden, because his hair is as much of his personality as anything else.
Mm-hmm.
He refuses to wear the wig.
Oh yeah.
He won't wear the traditional colonizer wig that goes with it.
Maybe he's one of those with that health. How is it he worded? Was he worded about himself? No, he was actually wording it about someone else. That healthy distaste for the British.
Healthy distaste. Well, let's again. History will bear me out. He was responsible, he and his government of the day, but he was largely responsible for the constitutional modernization that we have today, that granted Caymanians in Parliament, or the then Legislative Assembly, broader autonomy in terms of determining our future, a step closer to self-determination, not quite independence, but certainly a step closer into determining our own affairs. And he should be applauded for that.
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up. I mean, thanks for bringing it up, because I think some of these persons that are now bowing out, it would be good to go over and chat a little bit about some of the things that they were able to accomplish while they were in office, and I give accolades where it is well deserved. And again, I think Mr. Alden McLaughlin, Sir Alden McLaughlin, by the way, I think he's definitely made his contribution. I'm wishing him all the best, but I'm pretty sure he should be open to the speaker's position.
Well, again, whether we have a new government of a little bit of old, but a little bit of new, or as we're seeing more and more, certainly the last administration had its challenges. When I say last administration, I'm talking to the reminiscences of the current administration. We see a number of new heads coming out. We have an entire party, Canada's National Party, of all new people. No one who has any experience whatsoever in the legislative side of governance. And they're all, in many cases, giants of corporate
That was a good point you
command.
made. Experiment.
Yeah, well, it's not my word. It's not my. That's what I wanted to talk about, Sir Alden. In his departure speech, if you will, his retirement speech, he issued a warning. And again, I didn't see all of it, and I intend to do so in the coming days as we talk about it, because we don't like to paraphrase. We like to give you the facts as they obtain, and then let you decide, the listener, whether you agree with it or not. But one of the comments he made, and I'm paraphrasing, is that he was referring to, I think there's 6 standing current MPs that have elected not to contest a seat, have elected to retire. Sir Alden, one of them. The Premier, Honourable Juliana Connolly, is another one. You got David White, Barbara Connolly,
and
Bernie Bush. All right, all of which saying we're not coming back. Now, whether you like them, you don't like them, think they made contribution or otherwise, but you cannot take away from the fact that they've got the experience. They've been doing the job.
Right.
All right. And what Sir Alden was saying, warning against, that it's all well and good that you have newcomers, and you need newcomers. And certainly this, I think, is an indictment on the existing parties, which, again, the only real existing party we have is the Progressives, the PPM.
Yep.
And whilst we're seeing sort of that succession planning taking place now in the number of new candidates that they are bringing forward, they're bringing them forward as a matter of requirement because at least 5 of their members are saying goodbye to the platform. We need to do a better job of obviously bringing in new blood, whilst the old blood is still there. They say the new broom will sweep the floor, but old broom knows the corners.
Right.
And what I discovered in my experience in 4 years in office is, and I've always maintained it prior to running and being elected, is experience trumps everything. You may be fantastic. You may be a corporate giant, But if you have no experience in the realm of the job that you say not only do you want, but you want to be a potential premier, you should know a thing or two about the job. I.e., my big pet peeve with a lot of the present packed UPM government is here are folks who, well, in a lot of cases, they had 4 years within the opposition. So that experience is worth something. Yep. They had 4 years in Parliament. That experience is worth something. You know, they've learned a lot. But a lot of those same people came into office the same time I did. But a lot of them wanted to be cabinet ministers on day one.
Right away.
You know? And to my credit, I was even proposed for that. But I think, had the wherewithal to say, listen, this is my first time in public office. This is my first time working for government, period. I need to learn a little bit about the job before I start becoming your boss. And I think that's the point that Sir Alan was making. He was warning the country that when we go to the polls, to be cognizant that, yes, new blood is important, but we want experienced legislators mixed in with the new. Because otherwise, going into Parliament is not the place to learn how to do the job. You know, you'll spin your wheels for a long time, and whilst there's a cost for doing nothing, there's a cost for doing something and getting it wrong, there's also a cost for doing nothing because you're paralyzed, because you don't know how to bring a bill. You know, you don't know the steps. That an idea goes from an idea to a policy to a bill to a law. You know, all of those things. You don't know how to manage and work with the civil service. You don't know the skills they bring to the table. All of that is a learning curve. Yeah. And you and I both had that learning curve. And that is why, of course, our approach today on this talk show is we won't be the same quote-unquote crosstalk hosts we once were, because we've seen the other side of the coin. But we do have a caller on the line, ELlio. So let's pause and go to the phone lines. Hello, caller. You're on the air.
Hello.
Hi.
How are you guys doing today?
Very good, sir. Thank you for your call. What's on your mind?
ELlio.
Yeah. Hello.
I'm listening to you talking about what Alden said, right? But we also have to bear in mind, being a politician has no criteria.
I think, first of all, it was Austin that was talking about what Alden was saying. But, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. No, I'm just saying, I mean, you all...
we're both discussing it, yeah.
Yeah, so what I'm saying is being a politician has no criteria, right? I mean, high school diploma, anything, you can go in there and be a politician. Right? So I take that as a grain of salt. I mean, we have a bunch of politicians there now, right?
Yeah.
That allowed the CUC contract to roll over for another 25 years when it took them 5 minutes, opposition and sitting government, 5 minutes, right, to write a 2-line letter, okay, saying that we intend to renegotiate the contract. 5 minutes. So if they can't take 5 minutes and write one letter, how are you going to give them 4 more years?
Yes.
Right? I mean, that's my honest opinion.
No, that's a legitimate statement.
That's one of the things that would affect every Caymanian, right? I'm not saying that they get a better chance or negotiate any better, but it was a chance, right?
Sure.
Okay? To do something about what we have now. And no one thought to write a letter to say we intend to negotiate. And that is, to me, that is a little bit ridiculous, right? Okay? And I'm very perturbed about it because they allowed CUC contract to roll over. And then I sit down and I look at all the referendums that they're doing, right? Which makes absolutely no sense to me. Okay? And it makes no sense simply because what's the real plan? If you legalize marijuana, what's the plan behind it? Is it a social issue? What's your plan to deal with that? If you legalize gambling, same thing goes. It becomes, are you going to let everybody gamble? Is just the cruise ships going to gamble? Do you have any studies to do with what happens if you have a bunch of people gambling, spend all the money, and it becomes a social issue? Right? If you build a cruise ship port, right? You build a cruise ship port, and then town is a bunch of old buildings that you're paving the roads for people to walk down, and all the buildings need to be rebuilt. So you go on and put pavers on the road, and if an excavator run the road, the pavers will tear up if you're going to rebuild a building. All that makes no sense to me. I mean, realistically, I don't think the government has done anything that has been entirely 100% done and under budget or within budget, right? And the more I think about that and wrap my brain, I can't think of one. Right? I mean, we built an airport but you're still getting wet, dropping off people and getting on the plane. That's ridiculous, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the amount of money that we spent on it.
Yes.
You know? And those kind of things bothers me. And I've seen people from kids sitting down in front of the UCCI college. I think it is, right? That's the one behind by Truman Borden.
Yes.
Right? Sitting down there all day waiting for one class because they have nowhere to go. And they knock down the high school when they could have used some of the buildings to put those children in.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's Caymanian children, you know?
Yes.
So that's what we think about our Caymanian children, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay? And we expect any better?
No.
We can't expect any better.
Poignant points.
The simple fact is, right, we sit here and we twiddle our thumbs and we vote for who we like and who your mama is and I like your daddy.
Right.
Listen, you can't vote for somebody and do the job.
Yes.
And not one person either, you know, because one person can't do the job.
Agreed.
Okay? Because you can go in there with the best intentions of the world. You know.
Yeah.
Austin, you know. You can go in there with the best intention in the whole entire universe.
Yeah.
Right? And get no support and nothing happens.
That's right.
Okay? So those are the kind of things that perturb me. And we have, and I'll tell the Cayman Islands, right? We have one chance in 8 years to vote straight. Choose a party, vote straight, and vote for the people that are willing to do the job. Right? We've seen what people in there are sitting and doing now, and I judge them by nothingness. We're in the same situation we were in 8, 9, 10, 30 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Caymanians, I'm talking about the same things, mind you, you know. Caymanians can't find jobs, housing for Caymanians. And then we turn around and we relegate Caymanians to low-income housing. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
In our own country, we relegating Caymanians to low-income housing. And then we talk about a level playing field. I don't want a level playing field for my Caymanians, right? Their field need to be higher and above whoever flying here, right?
Yeah.
It's a joke.
The ideal.
Right, yeah, but it can be done. We have 25,000 Caymanians and 95,000 people.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? We got 25,000 people to look after. Or than 95,000. Right? And we are allowed to discriminate in our own country.
Mm-hmm.
But we're not doing it, right? People flying in here and they're going on West Bay Road or wherever else on Patrick's Island and Crystal Harbour and buying $1 million houses and we're relegating Caymanians to low-income housing.
Mm-hmm.
Are you joking?
Yes.
Right? That's an utter joke. So when I see those things and I look at it, all we're sitting here doing is building a welfare state, right? And it perturbs me simply because I have more years behind me than I have ahead of me, right? So I'm looking at my children and my grandchildren and see what they have to put up with, right?
Yes.
And if we don't straighten this thing out as Cayman, and I blame the voters, you know, right? Because the voters vote for who these people is to do what they need to do, right? Okay? So we need to sit down and have a look. And your vote as a person my age is not for you. It's for your children and your grandchildren.
Correct.
Right? We sit down here in Cayman and we allow the horse all the time on every issue to run out of the corral and then try to catch it every single time.
Yeah.
Right? We've never ahead of the issue. Okay? I heard ELlio talk. It bugs me about the garbage. Everywhere I look, I see a broke down car and strapped down. And I never grew up like that, right?
Right.
Okay, but Caymanians tend not to do that. They used to sweep the yard and they stand pretty in the yard. No matter how ugly the house was, the yard was pretty. Okay? All right? But we turn around here and we import people that not used to being in a country of garbage picked up and they throw the garbage all over the place and we do nothing about it.
Yeah.
Okay? That's a simple fact in the matter.
Correct.
And then we wonder about the environment when those people come here, can barely live and live in 20 and 17 and 18 per household or per bedroom and cycling beds, which means one person sleeps in the bed in the day and the next person sleeps in the bed at night because they work in different shifts. And then when you see that, now you know they can't afford to live on the island. What do you think they're going to do? They're going to rape the sea, right? And take all the small fish and all the conchs and eat up all the stingrays and everything else, right? And destroy the environment. That is what's going to happen. Okay? So we need to simply get a turnaround and a handle on this. And I said, you know, during COVID was the right time to reset this island and nobody did it. Not one soul did it. Okay? It was a total reset time and no one took the mantle up and made decisions to enable us to start back and open back up in the right manner. We're still speaking about the same things. We're still doing the same old things and expecting something different. If you gentlemen disagree with me, please let me know. If I said anything,
No, you're doing just fine.
We are in one accord.
Right? So it bugs the heck out of me. I mean, Austin, ELlio, you all have children. You all may have grandchildren soon. What is going to be left here for them?
Yes, that's a real question.
I mean, will they be able to go buy a piece of land and own a house? Or will they have to sit down there and wait for a low-income house that government have to build, right? And they turn around and build these houses, mind you, not making sure the people can maintain them, and they turn into garrisons.
Yeah.
Okay? Because if you can't maintain a house and you don't make sure the person can maintain a house, what is it going to turn into?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So we put those persons that we give most of those people, I'm trying not to say all of them, right? You put most of those people into a position where they're in a worse off position because now they have to find money to maintain a house that they can't maintain, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then the cost of living is only rising, right? And if you're looking at what Trump is doing and what's happening in America, if you think that won't affect the cost of living here, we're lying to ourselves.
Correct.
Right? If we sit down here and believe that what they're doing, all these tariffs, not going to affect this little island, we are lying to ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So they can sit down there and talk about all the fancy things that they can do and this and that and other. But look back and take a look at it and figure out, right, what has been done, what has actually the same issues we're regurgitating every 4 years, same issues. Every 4 years, same issues.
Yep.
Right? It hasn't changed.
And that's the point I was making earlier on. I can't understand, even like with the jobs for Cayman Zone, the past from 2013, why has nothing been identified, not one single job? So to your point, we keep talking about it, nothing happens.
Yep.
But this is what I'm saying. Right?
Mm-hmm.
That was passed. It was done. Great thing. Right? Same as I said, if you can't spend 5 minutes to send a 2-line letter saying I will negotiate to CUC, why didn't give you 4 more years for?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
5 minutes to write 2 lines?
Yep.
Right?
Agreed.
Right, lead back. You can pass anything you want to pass. If they don't have the testosterone fortitude to look out for the people of the island, 25,000 of us, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Then we have issues, right? And then they expect that 25,000 to go back and mark an X for them, right? Which is ridiculous.
Yeah.
Okay? So I would just say, Cayman need to choose the right people for the job. Listen, look at the ones that said the same things they did 4 years ago and don't give them the X. If they're giving you something, take it and vote for the right people for the job. Thank you.
Thank you so very much, caller, for taking the time and sharing your viewpoints. ELlio, I'll give you an opportunity to respond to some of his comments. Just wanted to say, again, reminding folks, the phone lines are open, 745-2626. You can be a part of the conversation just like the last caller. You know, we're putting ideas, and of course, we're certainly putting our viewpoints on the table, but we most are eager to hear your viewpoints. Just one final point. I just got a note on social media that we have at least one listener tuned in all the way from Minnesota.
Okay.
And that is the
Chile
frozen tundra these days. It's very cold in Chile over there, but they're feeling warmed up. They're feeling the tropical sunshine by tuning in. So I want to thank you, Minnesota, for tuning in to Straight Talk.
When you're far away from home, hearing that voice there,
yes,
it's like when you traveled, you just felt, as soon as you hit Miami and you saw Cayman Airways, it's like I feel like I'm home already.
Closer to home. So
we're happy that our voice is having some positive effect all the way in Chile or Minnesota.
Indeed.
But I mean, to the caller's point, and I want to touch a little bit on, you talk about the national part as well. I think it's going to be interesting because, again, the leader of that party is stressing that, hey, again, similar vein to what this gentleman's actually saying. He's saying, yeah, well, you've got other person that's been in there, and what have they done? And I do know that the same individual, the leader of that party, was also someone that several administrations called upon in terms of providing consulting reports in terms of how to improve the efficiency of the government. So
sure.
It's going to be an interesting race, and it would be good to have him and his party coming in here and sharing their side and getting to understand what it is that they stand for.
No, absolutely. And I think I take on board the caller's point. I think his general overall point was to the voters of this country. Mm-hmm. Choose carefully your next government. If you are in, the ELlio and myself demographic, we're not spring chickens. And he's right. We choose a government largely not to improve my lot in life, but absolutely to improve my sons, your sons and your daughters' lots in life, their opportunities, because they are the leaders. Don't make choices because you like how someone dresses, or you like how they made you feel.
That's what I wanted to
pay
pick up.
close attention to what they're saying, but also, and this is where we come in. We have an obligation to educate the public on what the issues are, so that the voter knows to know what questions they're going to be asking.
Point out a few things.
You know, so if you don't know what those issues are, and I just want to point one thing out, because the caller did generalize in the referendum questions, and he was a little incorrect. And that's why we said yesterday that one of the goals, particularly leading up to nomination day, will be to hold discussions on specifically the referendum questions, so that the registered voters are armed with the knowledge as to what it is they're being asked about, so they can make an informed decision. The caller, again, just generally said, you know, if we legalize ganja or marijuana, nobody's talking about legalizing anything. We're talking about decriminalizing certain small amounts of marijuana, cannabis, or ganja. Decriminalizing is not legalizing. So that's the first point I wanted to draw. Again, no criticism on the caller, but I'm just saying that I think his comments generally reflect the viewpoint of the wider audience. And if this is what they think the question is, then they're already going into the question ill-informed. Secondly, he talked about the gambling side, asked whether we're going to allow gambling only on the cruise ships, for example. Again, question number 2 has nothing to do with gambling, casino gambling, or otherwise. The question is, do you support the introduction of a national lottery into the Cayman Islands? So a lottery is different than gambling.
Right.
Lottery is different than casino gambling that you would find on board a cruise ship, for example, or in a hotel, or otherwise, you know, owned by an Indian reservation or whatever. They're very different things, is the only point I want to make.
You're absolutely right in a very technical way. And not to diminish the technicalities, but I think you're absolutely right. But if I pick on what the caller is saying, it's almost like sentimentally you're hitting, they see where you're kind of heading, not you, but they feel like they're being pushed in a certain direction, because one will argue that when you do introduce a national lottery, well, what's to follow? Is it not going to be, well, we've already got a national lottery, so we might as well allow the casino gambling?
Quite right.
And then persons will also see the decriminalization of cannabis in this particular case as, again, a step in that direction that will eventually just inevitably lead to the legalization of it.
Yes.
So definitely, but to your point, it is our responsibility to make sure that person, at least we see it as our responsibility to make sure people understand specifically what is on that question and technically what it is trying to say and do, and also understanding that there are other ramifications involved, and discussing those as well and giving you an opportunity to voice your opinion on it.
Yes. No, absolutely. 745-2626 as the phone line's number. Give us a call, share your thoughts and opinions and viewpoints on whether they be subjects we are discussing or subjects that you believe are important to the overall national agenda. We'd love to hear from you. We were talking, of course, about the motion to regulate the real estate industry, and I just want to just sort of bookend or wrap up that particular topic by saying that it's a good topic, I think, and it's certainly one that we can debate back and forth and multiple sides of it, and appreciate some of the more finer moving parts. But a private member's motion is just that, an idea. And I want to get on what the last caller touched on too, because that's important. It was just an idea, and the government agreed it's a good idea. But since there won't be any more parliamentary meetings, since there won't be any new bits of legislation, it's just an idea. And
it might just end up sitting on a shelf.
It might just end up sitting on a shelf, like so many things do in this country. But again, it's just an idea at this point. It's not a bill, so it's not law. It's not going to happen tomorrow, if ever. But if the next government believes it is something that should be added to their overall agenda, then again, this is something we'll find out during the campaign season. If they talk about it, if they pick up on it, if these are issues that they would otherwise support, that'll be an early indication. And just to the caller's point about managing expectations as it relates to going to the polls, because he's absolutely right. You and I had a lot of great ideas. I still have great ideas. I'm sure you have a laundry list of great ideas. But in politics, particularly after getting elected, is where the first challenge begins. If you do not have at least 10 friends, and I say 10 friends because we have a total of 19 seats, 10 is a majority to 19.
I use the term friend in a very vague way.
In a very vague way, because again, friendship in politics is, that's a very loose phrase. Let me assure you of that.
I'm your friend.
your first obligation in politics, if you have a great idea and you got elected, I don't know, because you want to make solar energy, let's just pick a topic out of the air, to the caller's point, behind the CUC contract renewal for another 25 years. If you want to make renewable energy the focus and you want to help Cayman achieve its renewable energy targets in a more expeditious manner, for example.
Right.
If you're the only one that got elected and you share that view, then you've got to begin by convincing 10 other people at least that this is a great idea, because then you'll sit in the majority. But just convincing those 10 people doesn't make it so. Convincing 10 people gets us to a bill. A bill goes before Parliament. It is debated in the House. If you're on the side of government with 10 friends, now you're 11, it's pretty much assured that bill's going to pass, but then you got to go out and create the legislation. But without those 10 friends, an idea is just an idea, and it's your idea. And in politics, with a constituencies of 19, you got 19 people with great ideas. And oftentimes, great ideas get lost in the shuffle unless you have friends. Hence why people say, well, why are we focusing on groups and parties and right now? Because that is the thinking. Obviously, you want to vote straight, or the parties and groups want you to, but there is an intelligent reason for that, because if they then go on to form the government, then there are 10, 9, 8, 7, whatever the number is in that grouping, of people with a shared agenda. And then there's a greater possibility that that agenda, things that they campaigned on, will actually go on to become more than just an idea, but maybe reach the stage of policy.
Yeah, and I'd like to touch and say a couple of comments about that. For example, even when I was in government, I was a part of a party. Yes. And even being a part of that party doesn't necessarily mean that you'll be able to get your ideas across. For example, the pension amendment that I brought that allowed Caymanians to be able to buy a piece of land, build a house, buy a house, or pay off your mortgage. When I first raised that idea, and to your point, I had to get at least one person to agree to second that. And I didn't really have the support of my party initially. But it was actually coming on your talk show and talking about it every day on the Factual Fridays.
Yes, that's right.
That I think allowed that to happen, because you're able to beat that drum enough and be able to convince enough persons, and whether silently or not, persons speak to their representative and say, hey, I think that idea that ELlio has is a good one. Yeah. And then eventually it passes. But there is a challenge, and in saying that, I want to encourage Caymanians. I think that one of the faults that we have is that we're not always very vociferous. It seems like some of us are very vociferous for whatever reason when it comes to stopping something.
Yes, good point.
They're very good at making noise when you're stopping something. But when you do see your representative doing something that you believe is beneficial for yourself, for your family, for the country, you need to be willing to pick up the phone and call the talk shows and step up and say, hey, we support this. They say the pen is mightier than the sword, and I believe the radio is even stronger than the pen.
Absolutely.
Pick up the phone.
The voice is the
Put
strongest.
a voice to it.
Yeah.
And when you share your stories, again, whether it's the cruise industry, whether it's about, I support this particular motion, no matter what it is, when you can call and share your personal stories or story and tell, the public hearing that, it motivates them.
Sure.
In a very, not just a logical way, but in a very emotional way that helps to bring about change. So I just want to encourage Caymanians to speak up.
Well, we got about 3 minutes before we have to pause and take a break, but we do have a caller on the line. Let's see if we can take that call real quick. Good evening, caller. You're on the air.
Lost him.
Oh, lost him. Didn't stick around. Well, we got about 3 minutes before we have to pause and take a short commercial break, go off to the BBC News. But the phone lines are open, 745-2626. Or you can send us a voice note on WhatsApp, 928-2562. The caller is back. Let's see if we can go to the phone lines. Good evening, caller. You're on the air.
Hi, Austin and ELlio.
Hi.
Team again.
How are you? Thank you for calling.
I just got in my car, so I wanted to call in and say congratulations. And I missed some of the conversation, but I wanted to say something regarding the whole real estate issue.
Sure.
I'm not sure if it was mentioned, but I think one of the issues that we're having is the developers they have an idea, they have a plan, all these ideas are pitched offshore, so someone is essentially buying a unit, say, priced at pre-construction prices of just say $300,000, But these people never intend to own that unit. They are flipping those contracts, right, through a lawyer here.
Mm-hmm.
So whoever is buying the property now will be the one paying upon completion. They flip it upon completion. So instead of paying $300, they're going to pay like $100,000 because they're flipping it at a premium on completed costs, and that person has to bear the cost of the stamp duty.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So this is a huge problem too that is actually causing a lot of inflation.
So you're saying there's no stamp duty payable on a sale price, even if it's pre-construction?
Correct.
Okay, I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's when it's finally closed, right?
Right. So this is the problem. So people are buying these properties from all over the globe, entering into a contract. Well, it's pre-construction prices, but they're not only paid stamp duty upon completion. And a lot of them have no intentions of owning the property. They're just profiting and flipping it.
Right. And that's one of the things I was saying to Austin earlier on as well, is that if you look at the whole issue about prices going up, a lot of it's caused because even when you have a lot of investors, they're willing to come in and pay that extra dollar for the piece of land, and it's just driving prices up.
Sure, indeed. Caller, I have to pause and take a break. I hate to cut you off now. I encourage you to call us back. But thank you for sharing that little tidbit. Certainly,
she knows.
She knows what she's talking about, and we're grateful for it. But we do have to pause, take a short commercial break, check in with the BBC News. The phone lines remain open at 745-2626, and you can find us streaming on YouTube at Straight Talk with Austin and ELlio. There'll be more Straight Talk still to come when we return, so keep it locked right here on Bobo FM.
How can we understand the world better?
The BBC World Service is a window onto the wider world.
The vantage point from which to survey a new horizon.
News, reports, and analysis from around the world.
Stories we think matter.
Different people from different societies.
We get to the heart of global issues.
News, stories, and global perspectives from the BBC World Service.
The home of the BBC World Service. This is Bobo FM.
The BBC World Service, the world's radio station.
The BBC World Service makes programs with a uniquely global perspective.
Enlighten us. Where do we start?
The latest world news and current affairs.
The very best in global arts and culture.
What has been happening on the financial markets today?
Social issues, political stories.
Everything was there in a way that I never heard before.
The BBC World Service.
The home of the BBC World Service. This is Bobo FM.
The BBC's From Our Own Correspondent.
In today's Russia, no one is allowed anywhere near the political stage if they pose a serious challenge to Vladimir Putin.
Stories and reflections from our reporters around the world.
There is a major sense of insecurity here.
More people are coming in from Sudan every day.
From Our Own Correspondent from the BBC.
The home of the BBC World Service. This is Bobo FM. This is Bobo FM, powered by Doctors Hospital. 24/7 urgent care, located in Georgetown at the top of Walker's Road. Introducing the Doctors Hospital Specialty Clinic, conveniently located in the Strand. To book your appointment at Doctors Hospital, call 325-9000. Across Cayman on 89.1 FM, online and on your smart speaker. The home of the BBC World Service. This is Bobo FM.
This is Danielle Yawowiecka with the BBC News. Hello. The Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has warned Hamas that unless it goes ahead with the release of Israeli hostages on Saturday, the ceasefire in Gaza will be terminated. Mr. Netanyahu's announcement comes after Hamas said on Monday it was delaying the next scheduled release because Israel was not in compliance with the ceasefire, a claim rejected by Israel. Wira Davis is in Jerusalem.
Mr. Netanyahu hasn't been clear whether he's insisting that all 76 remaining hostages should be freed by the deadline or whether he's referring to around 3 named hostages as outlined in the ceasefire agreement. If by the end of the week Hamas does release the names of the 3 hostages it intends to release, Mr. Netanyahu will face intense pressure not to resume the fighting.
Jordan's King Abdullah has reiterated in a meeting with President Trump at the White House that he opposes the displacement of Palestinians from Gaza. He said it was the unified Arab position. The president backed down on an earlier threat to withhold billions of dollars in aid for Jordan and Egypt if they refuse to take in Palestinians. Tom Bateman has more.
Each day brings new comments from Mr. Trump that is sending shockwaves through the region and upending years of established US policy, other times contradicting his own remarks from the day before. He repeated his plan to empty Gaza of Palestinians, to take it over and develop a Mediterranean resort. But he contradicted a comment made on Sunday that he would buy Gaza. King Abdullah, pressed by reporters on the plan to force out Palestinians to Jordan, said only that its ally Egypt was developing its own proposals for the future of Gaza.
The Associated Press news agency says it's been told by the White House that it will be barred from accessing the Oval Office unless it starts calling the Gulf of Mexico the Gulf of America. The agency said one of its journalists was refused entry on Tuesday because of AP's decision to not adhere to President Trump's executive order enforcing the name change. The White House has announced that an American man who's been held in Russia since 2021 on drug charges has now been freed. It said the 63-year-old schoolteacher Mark Fogel was on his way home after an exchange was negotiated with Russia. Samira Hussein is in Washington.
The White House said the negotiated release of Mark Fogel was a sign of good faith from Russia, but offered no further details on what steps it had taken to secure Mr. Fogel's release. The Trump administration is trying to improve relations with Russia in the hopes of bringing the war in Ukraine to an end. Over the weekend, President Trump suggested he'd been in talks with Russian President Vladimir Putin. On the campaign trail, President Trump promised to end the conflict between Russia and Ukraine within 24 hours of taking office, but has since dialed back those commitments.
World News from the BBC. The Ukrainian Prime Minister has told a British newspaper that he's prepared to offer Russia an exchange of territory in potential future negotiations. Speaking to the Guardian newspaper, Volodymyr Zelensky said parts of Russia's Kursk region, which Ukraine has held since an offensive 6 months ago, could be returned in exchange for Ukrainian territory currently occupied by Russia. The US Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent is to visit Kyiv this week, with some sources suggesting he'll offer continued American support for Ukraine in return for access to the country's rare earth minerals. The possibility of such a deal has been raised by Donald Trump. It was initially suggested in the peace plan President Zelensky put forward last year. Rare earth minerals are used in electronic consumer goods and missile systems. The World Health Organization has launched a new initiative to distribute free cancer medicines to thousands of children in low and middle-income countries. In the pilot phase, 6 countries will receive uninterrupted shipments of childhood cancer medicines. The first deliveries are being distributed in Mongolia and Uzbekistan, with later shipments planned for Ecuador, Jordan, Nepal and Zambia. The Australian footballer Sam Kerr has said she's fully focused on getting back onto the pitch after she was found not guilty of racially aggravated harassment at a court in London earlier. Here's Laura Scott.
The case centred on a heated exchange inside Twickenham police station, in which Sam Kerr, one of the best women's footballers in the world, called PC Stephen Lovell stupid and white. She accepted saying those words, but denied intending to cause harassment, alarm or distress, and denied using whiteness as an insult. PC Lovell said he was humiliated and took great offence at the reference to race. Ms Kerr said officers were dismissing her account of what had just happened in a taxi journey and were treating her differently because of the colour of her skin.
And that's the latest BBC World News.
The views and opinions expressed on Straight Talk with Austin and ELlio do not necessarily reflect or represent the views of Stingray Media, its staff, or contributors. Callers to the program accept full responsibility for the views expressed. The show host and affiliates are not liable for any statements made or any harm claimed. All callers to the program indemnify Straight Talk from all claims. Offensive, defamatory, or unlawful content will not be tolerated. Be a part of the conversation by calling 745-2626. Now, here's Straight Talk with Austin and ELlio on Bobo FM.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Straight Talk with your host,
Austin Harris.
And myself, ELlio Solomon. And of course, we know you're sitting out there in traffic, and we hope that we're making life a little bit less painful for you sitting in that traffic.
Yes.
606. We greatly appreciate it. And of course, we want to encourage all those persons out there listening. If you're listening to us, share the good news. You know, it takes at least that 21 days for people to break habits, get into a new one. And we want to get people knowing about Straight Talk.
Indeed. The number to call is 745-2626. We have the last caller back with us, and because we kind of cut her off, we're going to begin with her right now. Caller, you're back.
Yes. Hi.
Hi again. Sorry about that.
That's okay. I've been on the road. I'm hands-free. Swear I'm not holding my phone, so don't arrest me. Driving home. But real quickly, just to continue the conversation, just so there's a clear understanding, I don't want people to get up in arms and I'm not saying things that are factual.
Mm-hmm.
The problem is you don't have a lot of Caymanians that have $20,000, whatever, sitting around in cash, that when these properties become available, when they're marketed, they simply can't just say, oh, yeah, that looks like a home or an apartment I want to buy. Let me go draw out the money and put a down payment on. And because these things are marketed worldwide, then people obviously of good financial means can just send the check, checks in the mail to the wires. So a lot of Caymanians are going to be cut out of that opportunity because they simply don't have the down payment, the deposit. I don't know what all the covenants are in these contracts. I saw one once. I was doing a mortgage for someone, and when I looked at the closing statement, this person was paying all the fees, even the legal fees. And I'm like, hold on, that's your lawyer representing to flip the contract for you. You need to eat that cost, buddy.
Right.
So I kind of stepped in and negotiated a lower price for the customer. So
good for you.
But yeah, well, you know me. How many people are that have that kind of information, that knowledge that can fend for themselves?
Sure. Good point.
So,
very good point. All right. Is that everything?
Yeah.
All right.
Well, thank you. And please don't be a stranger.
Yeah.
You find that whatever topic we're on tends to, pique an interest, and by all means, we'd love to hear more from you.
Yep, I will.
All right. Thank you so much. You drive safe and you get home safe as well. 745-2626 is the number. Give us a call.
See how time flies. It's 6:08 already.
Yeah, no, it did. We just turned the mic on. It was 4:30, and now we blinked, and it's almost over.
That's it.
It is. It's all right. It's all right. That's what happens, when you're having a good time. Time flies.
Malcolm Gladwell wrote that book, Blink. You read that book?
No, I have not.
He's the same one for Outliers. I think it was What the Dog Saw and Blink.
Blink. Well, you hold on to blinking. We have another caller on the line. Good evening, caller. You're on the air.
Afternoon. I didn't want to call back, but I had to.
That's all right.
I want to say this, right? When it comes to the real estate issue, which I meant to mention the first time with the calls.
That's fine.
We don't have no criteria on how these places are evaluated, right?
Correct. Yeah, prices are arbitrarily set.
Yes, that's a problem, right? So
Yes.
that's the first thing that needs to be looked into, because you could go and get one evaluated on one corner to evaluate it, and the next one is different values completely, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that's one of the things that has to be addressed. The government or someone needs to set a criteria on evaluations. Okay, whether it be we have a lands and survey there, whoever is in there, they need to set a criteria, and this is how things need to be evaluated, and you have a criteria to work with, whether it be a house or a piece of property or whatever case. That's a start. Secondly, what happens here, what I think people don't understand or don't realize, is sometimes when you have apartment complexes building, right?
Mm-hmm.
Some real estate agents go and they place deposit on a bunch of apartments. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Small deposit. So you can make so if it's $1 million place or $500,000 place, you're gonna put a $10,000 or $5,000 deposit across the board, 5, 6, 7 of them.
Mm-hmm.
Wait until they almost finish, and then draw the prices up.
Okay.
And resell them, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So that alone also is what is driving prices up, and I've actually seen it happen, right?
Yes.
I know. I'm not talking out of turn when I say that.
Right.
Right. So that is literally what happens. So they do that kind of like an investment, as in if I can put down $5,000 or $10,000 and wait 2 years and then sell it when it almost finished for a greater price than I got it for, and then that also drives up the price of the apartments up. So those kind of things, I guess I don't know how you'd regulate that, right?
Yes.
But these are the kind of things that drive the prices up. I mean,
I just wanted to say something on the point about valuation and there being standards. Now, I definitely can't claim to know much about the industry, but I would have thought that there were some sort of best practices out there that these companies would be using. So where you might get a little bit of a variance, a couple of thousand here or there, I would have thought that there would be some best practice that caused them to lead pretty much to the same conclusion.
I have had places evaluated, that has come back horribly. Okay.
Great disparity.
Yes.
Okay.
They just take and look at the value of places that have sold, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And they
I know that one. Yeah.
So they choose and pick. So a place might be sold for a little bit lower. They choose the highest one.
I see.
Right.
Right.
You understand what I'm saying?
Oh, so maybe if government's doing a forced acquisition, then they would use a lower price.
Exactly. That's my point.
It all depends who the buyer is.
That's my point. And I don't know if you noticed or when you had an evaluation done, right? There's two numbers on evaluation, okay? So when you look at evaluation, you got to properly evaluate. There's two numbers: a high number and a lower number.
Right, a range.
The lower number, yes, in that range, right?
Right.
So they cover themselves by saying, "Oh, this low range," and people look, "Oh, this is what it is."
Right.
You understand what I'm saying? So it's actually like maybe that's the lowest one that was sold, and then this is the highest price you can get for it, and then people say, "Okay, the highest price is the one." But there's too much of a gap. So if they're gonna, like, when they evaluate places in the States, they evaluate it based on a criteria that they have to stick by.
Right.
Okay?
Right.
That's how that is done in the States.
Yes.
So we need to adopt that same policy here.
Interesting. Something I'm going to have to look into, that's for sure.
No, absolutely. You're giving us some food for thought, caller.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you, gentlemen.
All right, thank you
buddy.
very much. No, he did raise a point, where the regulation would come from. And in my mind, I mean, we've got first the MP for West Bay, I don't remember where, Central or whatever, Bernie Bush, proposing this private members motion, which was generally accepted as a good idea. But really, if you're talking about the cost of real estate, which is more of a consumer spending item, then you're going to have to, first of all, define that category, not just on the regulations and how you're going to introduce in the real estate sector, but you're going to have to define that as a category in the consumer protection legislation, and then maybe also as an addendum to the registered land law, where we're starting to set key criteria, whether it have to do with pricing of a real estate, a particular product based on a sector. We talked about a range, high and low. Likewise, for those valuators, they're, again, designated by category within some acceptable ranges. But very clearly, there's no one law you would go to and make changes, and then it becomes universal. I think in many cases, we'll be amending a variety of laws if we go down this rabbit hole, which is not a bad thing because, whatever it takes to get you to your end result is the goal, yeah?
Yeah, well, I mean, it is interesting. Again, I remember on one time the tax issue, and you looked at how all of these institutions and bodies kind of creates its own energy. So, for example, you can see that if the government got in, and God forbid if that happens, but I told you Chris Bryant wanted us to implement property tax in 2009.
Yes.
Well, you can see that if government started doing that, it's in kind of government's favor. It becomes a natural evolutionary process that they want you to have a higher valuation, right? It means more money in the coffers. And then your real estate agents on their own sort of drive would want to see higher prices. It means more commission. And you definitely need to do what you can to kind of create some sort of, for the want of a better expression, checks and balances to try to, because it is, as you said, fundamental. It's foundational in terms of that's expensive, then everything has a ripple effect and everything else would be expensive.
Yes, indeed.
Interesting.
And I think, one of again, we talked earlier on about the cost of making a decision. If it's a wrong decision, it could go horribly wrong and there's a cost to that. But there's also a cost to doing nothing. And this is one of those examples. Successive administrations have decided to leave this topic untouched and instead allow the free market to decide for itself. If you think the costs are too expensive in Cayman, stop buying real estate. And if everybody stops buying real estate, well, then obviously the sellers are going to say, well, hang on, Maybe my price is too high. Let's offer a discount. That's leaving the market to itself to regulate itself, much like the industry. That's doing nothing. But we see doing nothing does very little to improve the cost of something.
Well, hearing you say this, Austin, and I'm sure this is a topic that, with your experience, like mine, would be able to join chorus. Probably don't have the time today, but another day we can chat a little bit more. But one of the things I was doing earlier on was encouraging Caymanians to be able to pick up the phone and call and let your voices be heard on issues. People are going to be listening. And I think one of the challenges that I saw with politics is that, and I think it was the same male caller here now that was touching on it, we really need to get past the voting for your friend.
Oh, yeah.
And, I will vote for him, because I tell you what happened, right? When my daughter died, he came and he helped pay the coffin.
Yeah.
And all of these little things that, yes, those are it's acts of kindness. It's all good, but you really need to be thinking a little bit more long term. And I say that because you are now creating a system in Cayman where politicians are staying in office because they do nothing.
True.
It's the ones that are making decisions that splits the room.
That's right.
And we're getting into a really bad state of affairs. And I think it's a discussion we should have one day.
No,
it's
you're
like
absolutely right.
it's like the people that do good things like yourself. Hey, just got a park built in Prospect. Get rid of that guy. What's he doing?
Well, I think that was in part one of the points the previous caller was making behind all these referendums. Saying, you know what? We elect leaders, representatives to lead, but yet we want to take every question that they would otherwise provide leadership on and go back to the public. So, it's a 50-50 argument depending on, who you're asking. But we do have a caller on the line. Let's see if we can take that call now. Good evening, caller. You're on the air.
Hey, Austin, ELlio. Good evening. Dominic Banks here.
Good evening. Good evening.
Who's that?
Who is that?
Dominic.
Oh, Dominic.
Okay.
Hey, how are you? Thank you for taking the time.
Yeah, not a problem at all. I certainly appreciate you guys being on and hosting the whole evening. Excited they choose the evening, made the week even better. The topics has been great. I think pretty much a few callers spoke most of what we're going to talk about this afternoon, and you guys are touching on it as well too. And cost of living definitely is a big topic because obviously, when we look at it, no matter how much our salaries are increased, the cost of living seems to outpace it constantly. Even so far in advance that it would take a couple of years of salary increase to catch up on where we are. But it was great to see that, these topics about these issues that are causing a lot of these problems, like certainly things like people using our, land sales system. We know this has been going on for a long time. People buying it at cheaper rates, selling it back more expensive, and even the market open, like you guys said, it needs more regulation. Obviously, it seems that we've been electing people all of this while that prefers the free market. Obviously, you haven't seen anybody come. You guys have been in government before too. If you look back, and I'm not saying anything negative towards them, just saying obviously everybody has opportunity to, whether you're going to get a bill and support or not, like you're saying, is just the beginning. At least to table that bill to show that you have intentions and you like to see changes in those areas.
Right.
Like I said, so these are things that you guys spoke about. We have a lot of new politicians with no experience,
right,
and a few older ones in there. Yourselves were unexperienced as well when you first went in, obviously, and it didn't. I think Tampering, I think you guys did an awesome job, both of you. ELlio, like I said, a lot of people are, as you spoke earlier on, talking about when you were, you tabled the bill and got it passed for people to be able to use their pension.
Right, absolutely.
And look at the drop down today. They're not only able to use it just to purchase a house, it's opened up, more opportunity where you can apply it to other necessities,
Absolutely.
So, and it was some money that other people was, I should say, were using up, and we didn't get an opportunity to use it. So you guys did a good job while you're there as first-time electors. So all of those people who are going in for the first time, definitely, I too, like yourselves, encourage them, to go there and give it your best, and obviously make sure it's, you're not looking at a job, because this isn't a job you're going in for. This has to be a calling. This is a service that you're bringing to your country.
Yes.
And obviously, like I say, I would encourage all of those that are coming in for the first time to make sure to hold your chin up high and keep your country at heart, because at the end of the day, we already know what all these issues are. So if anybody get elected, whether it's individuals who then have to come together and make up a government, I can't see how any of the 19 elected representatives can understand with the current issues we have where we need to stop immigration, all these areas that we just spoke about this evening, they need to be dealt with, you know. But like I say, I am not going to hold up. I want to hear more from you guys and other people on opportunity. But I just want to, you know, just give you guys a call and, you know, give you guys my support. I've been listening in.
Well, we appreciate that.
Yes, thank you, Dominic. Absolutely.
Just to give you guys my support. So you guys have a safe evening as well, and I'll sit back and listen in from the outside.
Thank you.
God bless you, brother, and you get home safe.
Absolutely.
No, listen, the caller made a valid point in his closing moments. And far be it for me to suggest that an incoming, brand new, fresh to the market, so to speak, politician can make a contribution. That is certainly not the case. A lot of the persons that are new are seasoned, they're responsible adults, they're career-minded adults, they've probably done very well in their respective careers. So their learning curve, they can learn quick. And by all means, getting elected is not getting thrown into the kiddie pool. You are definitely thrown into the deep end. You're going to have to tread water. And yes, there's sharks there, but we can adapt to that and still make a difference. So I, by all means, would encourage newcomers, and I'm not suggesting that newcomers won't make a contribution.
Yeah, there's, you know,
I apologize if that was, you know.
Yeah, I think there's pros and cons on both sides. And yeah, if you have a new person, you just have to know you're going to have to do double the work because you've got to learn all the standing orders, and you've got to learn that, you know, dealing with sometimes civil servants can be, as they say, pushing a chain up a hill. You know, so there's some challenges.
It's not for the faint of heart. I'll tell you that much.
It doesn't mean you can't necessarily pull it off.
Right. No, indeed.
But you know, and again, there's a place because you do have a lot of persons inside there now that we can still say are relatively new to politics, but at the same time they're a little bit more seasoned than they were before.
Sure.
And again, now one could say that you graduate in the process. You know, maybe you ended up that you were opposition or backbencher, and now you're facing that you're a minister. There's a growth and a process there. And part of that newness doesn't necessarily all have to be newness from the outside, per se, but it can be newness in the sense that, you know, like when Austin got in, now you finally got a chance to be minister. That puts you that much more in a position where you can start to implement some of those wonderful ideas that you had, that you couldn't necessarily do as good when you were a backbench. So it's open, and I just want to say that, again, Austin and I are going to play that part that we can in terms of listening to what the candidates have to say, analyzing those things, having wonderful discussions that inform you and be able to help you in making your decisions. But definitely hoping to have some of these different candidates on there, whether new or returning. We hope to be. I almost made that $1 million joke, but I'll leave it another day.
Leave it alone.
You know,
leave it alone.
So, leave it alone.
Leave it alone. Leave it alone. Don't go there. Just
ELlio,
change the topic.
Don't end the program this way, ELlio. I'm begging you.
Don't do that.
I know. At least give it. Maybe we can talk about it for 2 hours.
Correct.
Anyway, you can see there's something itching. But basically getting candidates inside of here that we can have all of our discussions, whether they're new coming or incoming again, we want to be able to have that so you can make an informed decision.
Yes, indeed. And certainly that is our goal, and we will certainly be opening our doors and inviting the candidates to step up. We're going to be really taking, I think, a concerted effort after nomination day once we know specifically who all the candidates will be. As we mentioned yesterday, we will be seeking to have the Deputy Premier on to speak about the referendum questions put out, because he did pilot it through the House. He's not on island right now. He would have been our first guest had he been on island, but he's not. So we're going to try to get him on maybe next week. We've also extended an invitation to the Director of Elections, Mr. Wesley Howell, to come on board and talk to us about the election process. I believe he will as well. So, yes, a lot of these conversations will be held on this program. We make that commitment to you, and our only goal is to educate, enlighten, and to elevate
and of
the listening audience on the topics that we face, but now even more so because the timeline is short, to educate our audiences, particularly the voters, who will have the awesome responsibility of going to the polls and not only selecting who the next government will be, but again, as we mentioned, also be asked to answer 3 very important questions of national importance. And we want you to be as informed as possible, not telling you how to vote, what to say, but but certainly to be informed, to be, forewarned is to be forearmed, something to that effect.
Something like that.
Something like that. Well, we got 2 minutes left. ELlio, I'll give the floor to you for some closing comments.
Yeah, well, I want to say in working my way towards the closing comments, I just wanted to say that I want to thank all those persons who are listening, but we can't see you. But it was good for the persons who picked up the phone and called, because that confirms that people are listening. We're not just talking, you're not just talking to me, Austin. There's actually people listening. And I want to thank you for calling, and all those who are listening that just decides to listen. I want to encourage you on a daily basis. If you could text your friends, spread the word, let them know that Straight Talk, this dynamic duo, is back together again, doing some crazy things and trying to make sure that we can inform you. So spread the word, WhatsApp, etc., and get it out there so that people can listen in every week, Monday through Friday, from 4:30 until 6:30. We encourage you to be able to listen in.
Yeah.
And in terms of getting out on social media, we need your help. Go on and follow us on our Facebook page, which is Straight Talk. And we need, I think, at least 100 followers before Meta, the new name, Meta, will go ahead and let us be able to start streaming live. So we need your help.
Right.
See if we can get a couple of people to follow us. But again, it's been another wonderful discussion, Austin. And I have to tell people again, I haven't had the chance to sit here like this with my colleague for years, but it is an awesome feeling. And it's like riding a bicycle, right? Once you do it, you don't forget. So it's good to be back here in the saddle with you again, my friend.
Oh, the feeling is very mutual, ELlio. It feels, as you say, natural.
Yeah.
It's as natural as breathing.
Mm-hmm.
It feels great to be back here making a contribution. And, I tell people all the time, who ask, are you going to run again this year? You know what? No, I'm going a different road. But there are many ways in which we can both make contributions to the overall better good. And this is how ELlio and I choose to do it this time around, and it's a treat to be back. But yes, the first milestone is to achieve 100 followers on Facebook and Instagram, and we can only do that with you. But that's all the time we have for you today. I'm your host, Austin Harris.
And I'm ELlio Solomon, so join us again tomorrow at 4:30 right here on Straight Talk.
On Bobo FM.
The BBC on Bobo. This is the BBC World Service. Across Cayman on Bobo FM.